All right, looks like we're live. How's everybody doing tonight? Hope everyone's doing well on this Monday night. So, on tonight's show, we're going to be doing something similar to what we did last week, where we had on a whole assortment of characters discussing some of our recent adventures in the Pacific Northwest. This one's about Oregon, but if you missed last week's, go and check that out. We talk about our time at Bluff Creek in Northern California, visiting the Patterson-Gimlin film site, some of the interesting things we had happen while we were out there in the PNW, which was pretty awesome. And this is kind of the second part of that journey. We were going to do both in one episode, but we found there was so much to talk about that we decided to split it up. So for those that haven't seen that episode, feel free to go check that out and all the other previous streams here on Sasquatch Out of the Shadows Live. A lot of great shows. Carrick did a bunch of shows. Carrick St. Laurent of Crash Course Cryptozoology did a bunch before while we were gone. Next week, we will be having on a Bigfoot researcher from New Hampshire. I'm not going to say his name. He runs kind of a page. He has people who have their reports. So that'll be really interesting to talk about New Hampshire stuff once again. So that should be fun. So without further ado, let's bring in some of the gang. They're going to be coming in kind of in bits and pieces. Some people are coming in and maybe staying out, but most of the same crew from last week, with one exception, with Jonathan not being in, and we got another guy coming in. So let's just bring everybody in. What's up, guys? I guess there's Eli's back.
Hey, what's up?
Was he trying to do like a bad guy reveal?
Dude, it's Tate. How'd you grow your hair back so fast?
Magic.
What's going on, guys?
What's up?
I'm just in my car.
He's just chilling. So Tate's still on the road. He's still coming back from the trip, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Crazy.
It's fun.
So I have your shirt on, Eli. This is Eli's new Cryptid Campfire shirt, by the way. Got to throw a little plug in for that. You got a bunch of cool things on there. Link to his page, or not his page, his podcast, Cryptid Campfire, down below if you want to go check that out. Awesome stuff going on there. Got to throw a plug in. Also, Tate, I saw you just put up an episode on the Bluff Creek Project podcast today about the three of us actually talking in Louse Camp. So if you guys want to check out the Bluff Creek Project podcast, that's also linked below. Go check Tate's stuff out. You know, we're having similar discussions, so it's pretty awesome. That was right after we had that rock slide incident happen.
It was the next morning. It was
the next morning, so it's probably like the freshest details aside from what we filmed at the moment, which I think is awesome. So
yeah,
good stuff. But awesome to see you guys are doing good. Hello to everybody in the comments. Peggy says, "Happy Monday, fellow Sasquatch enthusiast. How's it going? How you doing, Bill?" Chris Spitzer, "Hey guys, it's been a while. How's it going? Welcome to everybody in the chat and everyone who's watching." So yeah, as I was talking about in the opening here, I just whacked my computer. We're gonna be talking about the Oregon portion of the trip. So it was, man, it feels like it was forever ago, even though it really wasn't that long ago.
No, it does feel like it was like right around the corner from in the past, not the future.
Crazy. So basically what happened was, after we spent that time in Bluff Creek, we just kept going north. So Eli and I went earlier. Tate, you came a few days after us, but maybe Eli and I will talk a little bit about just kind of initial impressions as we're driving north. So once we left Bluff Creek, we went out to the coast to the Redwoods, kind of spent a little bit of time there, checked out some of that coastal area, and then headed on up into Oregon. So that was pretty interesting. I guess Tate is just gone again.
Mike, can you hear me?
Oh yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
My iPhone needs to cool down. I don't know why. So
probably had it in the sun, or maybe you're running the GPS too long. But either way, I guess before we start out and kind of the day-to-day stuff, what do you guys think about? Let's get some impressions about Oregon in general. I know you guys have both been there. I had never been there before, so I'd love to hear. Maybe start with Eli. What was your kind of impression after this whole journey to Oregon? I know you'd been there once before, and you kept talking about how great that area was. So,
yeah,
what was this? Did this change your mind about it?
No, I still loved it. Still an awesome area. I mean, I'd only been to Mount Hood before, so coming in through the southern end and checking out, Brookings, Oregon, and seeing the coast and obviously Crater Lake, seeing all that stuff was really cool and kind of added to, solidified Oregon as my favorite. No sales tax, also a big plus. So
we got that in here in New Hampshire too.
Yeah.
So you got two good choices.
You're just not the PNW, dude.
Close enough, right?
Hey, Alex, will that link work if I have to shut my phone off and turn it back on?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, if you just click it again.
Okay, cool. Because I probably got to do that. My phone's being stupid.
Okay, so I guess we'll hold off on your initial thoughts then.
Oh yeah, just give me a minute or two.
Okay.
Change the link so you can't join again.
Right. But okay, yeah. So it was my first time being there, and I thought it was really interesting just seeing Oregon for the first time. I mean, we were obviously in Northern California right before then. I thought it would be pretty similar, but unique. And you kept saying, well, the terrain around Mount Hood is completely different than it is Northern California, or even in Washington. We were up there in April, so it was kind of like I had seen the southern tip of the Pacific Northwest and the northern tip, because you're right there in that Olympic mountain range area. So it's like, what's in between? And that's what we got to kind of do now, which was really awesome. Obviously, there was a big draw there with Cliff Barrickman and the museum he runs, the North American Bigfoot Center. That was awesome. But yeah, my impressions were, man, it was a lot drier than I thought. And I understand it's because there's a lot of the drought stuff going on, a lot of fires going on. So that was rough, but it definitely was a lot drier than I thought. And maybe that's the summer season, but could be an off year too. But in terms of habitat, yeah, it was crazy around Mount Hood, especially. It was like any logging road you went down, there was potential for all kinds of animals to live in that area. So I would definitely really enjoyed Oregon. Yeah, I thought it was interesting.
Did you like it more than Northern California?
Tate's back. Let's see if that'll work now.
Yeah, my phone was being really stupid for some reason.
No worries. So did I like it more than Northern California? I don't know. That's a tough question. I think it was different. I wouldn't trade either experience, especially back to back like that. There's something about Bluff Creek, and I'm knee deep right now in editing Beyond the Trail. Actually, the episode's going to be called Bigfoot at Bluff Creek. It's not going to be California Bigfoot Country anymore, whatever the working title was. It's now officially going to be Bigfoot in Bluff Creek, Bigfoot at Bluff Creek. So I think just because that area is so special with the history, PGF film, everything like that, stuck in my mind. But Oregon was something totally different, because I got the feeling of some of the areas we went to that there's just such a long history of sightings in those areas and research that's really been done since like the 70s and 80s. There's been people consistently researching some of the areas that we were in and pulling tracks out of as recently as a couple months ago, including 50 years ago. So I thought it was probably one area in the U.S. that's been studied, aside from Bluff Creek perhaps, that's been studied a lot with this subject, in the sense that there's been researchers out there for a lot longer than maybe states down south or out east, where the Bigfoot thing really kind of kicked off in the 1990s and the 2000s. So there's just more of a history there, history of sightings, history of evidence being pulled out in the form of tracks. I got that book by Joe Bielart, The Oregon Bigfoot Highway, and man, it's amazing. There's so many reports all along the Clackamas River and that whole area. So yeah, it was definitely it was different. Like I said, I wouldn't say I liked one area over the other. I mean, if you were to tell me tomorrow you have to go to Bluff Creek or the Mount Hood area, I'd be like, okay, I have no issue with that. Just send me.
Yeah, straight up.
So Tate, what did you think about Oregon? You'd been there a couple times before, I believe, but what was
Just
your
once.
kind of? Oh, so this is your second time there.
Yeah, I like it, and it's I think it was you that said it last. I can't remember where you said it, but there's something different about camping in Oregon versus camping in Bluff Creek for sure.
Yeah.
I like Bluff Creek because it's mysterious, but I like Oregon because it's different, and I haven't been there as many times, so it's still fresh.
Sure.
So that's kind of like my take on it. But and then both have their advantages. I think Oregon is better. I think you have better luck hearing something, just because I think Bluff Creek is so tapped out. So you get there's good and bad on both sides of each argument. So I mean, they each have their thing going for them. So that's just kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah, totally. I felt pretty similarly. I mean, they're both different and unique in their own ways. And I mean, I just remember some of the places we went to in Oregon, and we'll get a little bit more into that when Eli comes back. I'll talk with him a little bit about southern part of Oregon there. But Bill Murr says, you guys must have been exhausted by the end of the trip. Yeah.
I'm still exhausted.
The trip still goes on for Tate.
I haven't even gotten home yet. I'm like 3 hours from home.
Yeah, Eli is his trip was a few days longer than mine because I flew back. He had to drive all the way back to Southern California from Portland. So,
yeah, I did.
How'd you feel after that?
I was very tired. I overslept and they towed my car. So,
where?
Good old welcome back to LA, huh?
Yeah, I stopped at my grandmother's place. So I had driven 10 hours from the sort of Portland area down to Fortuna, and then spent the night, and then drove another 10 hours the next day to Los Angeles, and then I'd set 5 alarms to wake up at 6 in the morning, and then I just slept through all of them.
That's amazing.
Yep, and it was $400. So
LA is brutal. That's just not even fair.
Yeah.
Inhumane. But anyway, so we have Ron actually has joined the chat, or not the chat, the show. What's up, Ron?
What's up, guys?
So you guys will remember Ron was on last week. He was also there with us. So it was kind of like we're like this ragtag group of Bigfooters in the Pacific Northwest. Just everyone's got their own agendas and their own times they're showing up places. So Eli and I were the first wave, and then Tate was the second. Ron was the third wave that migrated from California to Oregon. So Ron, what are your impressions of spending time in that area of Oregon? I know you've been there in the past, or was that your first time in that area?
Okay, so yeah, I'd been there like three years earlier, but I didn't know what I was doing there. I didn't really hear a lot of where to go in the Mount Hood region and like kind of where to look for Bigfoot in Oregon. And so I had like a lot of ideas and kind of points in the right direction in California, and then momentarily stopped in Oregon. And then like before I was really there for any length of time, I was up in Washington where I had a few other leads. So I just kind of passed through Mount Hood, and apparently after this trip, I realized we missed a lot. Me and Bandit, we definitely like blew over a lot of potential there.
Oh, totally. Yeah, we saw so many great spots, and we'll dig a little bit more into that. But I just want to read this comment from Salvatore. He's got a question for you, Tate. Salvatore says, Tate, which state, California or Oregon, has the best can of beer?
As long as they have PBR, that's all I need. That's the best can of beer.
That's the right answer. If you ask Tate, there you go.
Well, look at my shirt.
I know. You're the walking spokesperson. We just need to get you sponsored by them. That's the next move.
It is the next move.
So we have a comment from Kevin. He says, my cell service is weak. I'm camping in the Bigfoot habituation site near Nordegg, Alberta. I'm going to miss this episode, I'm afraid. First one I've missed. Expletive. Yeah, Kevin, man. I mean,
well, hey,
it's great to have Alex. You always on the show, but like seriously, man, enjoy it because that's an awesome area. That's been, I know Justin Sherman-Pesky's been up there. That's been featured in Survivor Man, Bigfoot. Obviously, I think Todd Standing had stuff going on there or whatever, you know. But it's like a known area in Canada, so that's pretty neat. What were you going to say, Tate?
He didn't say expletive. He said damn. Okay,
Tate. Thank you for that. That was great. YouTube's going to love me. But moving on.
Not for kids.
So here's Jonathan. He says, I almost didn't recognize Tate without the beer in his hand. That's why he has it on his shirt. Yeah. That's why it's on the shirt, Jonathan. Awesome. But anyway, to get back on track. So so yeah, when we left Northern California, Eli and I went straight to Crater Lake, which was mind blowing. I mean, that place is crazy. I actually have I got the brochure right here from the national park. Totally wild, totally wild. I mean, it reminded me of the Mediterranean. It was you're like in this crater, and we went swimming down in the water, and it was as blue as Ron's shirt. I mean, it was absolutely crazy blue. Yeah, it was nuts. But
Yeah.
it was super smoky because there was fires going on. There's obviously a lot of fires raging in that part of the country right now in Oregon. And we camped in the. You want to give the pronunciation as the Umpqua or Umpqua?
Umpqua? I don't know. That's
Umpqua, yeah.
Umpqua.
Oompa Loompa Qua.
Yeah, it's always a struggle. But we camped in that area that night, and the air quality was super smoky. We were near a section of highway that was actually closed, so we camped in this spot, and it was just creepy vibes in that area, man.
Yeah, it was, dude. It was so like, I don't know how to even describe it. It was just like not okay.
It was strange. We pulled up in this. We're just driving these logging roads. We pull up in a random little spot, just set up the camp, set up the tent, and then just made some food and went pretty much straight to bed. It was just that area was just spooky vibes for sure.
Well, then you have everything, it was pretty much after we left Crater Lake, after we left the parking lot, and then like there was just nobody.
Yeah.
And then we were just driving through the woods. We stopped, and it was just like nobody for so long. Just felt weird.
Yeah, I was woken up at probably 6 in the morning by some kind of strange vocalizations. I think there was probably a mountain lion. I kind of been listening to some other sounds. I'm not sure if my audio got it. It may have been too far away, but it was just kind of interesting hearing that. So Peggy actually asks, creepy because of Bigfoot vibes or looming forest fire vibes? Probably both, honestly.
Both.
The fire part was definitely there because it felt like you're at the edge of where it was acceptable to be. Because once we basically got out of that area on the main road, section of road that was closed, it just it had this weird apocalyptic, I don't know, apocalypse now kind of hazy orange feel to it. That's how I felt, at least. And of course, knowing there's so much stuff in the area.
Yeah, it was just so. Yeah, I don't know. I was worried. I thought we were close to the fire. I don't know, just being the smoke and everything. I don't know. Maybe Oregon's not as dry as Southern California, but like usually when there's smoke in the air, it's pretty bad. It's a bad sign.
But also, I mean, compared to Southern California, Oregon is so much more forested, especially that part. So that's where the threat is. I mean, you're in a giant forest and it's super dry. It's basically a tinder bundle.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was creepy. We stayed just one night there. That was just kind of a through route, and then we went up to. After that, we pretty much drove straight up to the Portland area. So we were staying with our buddy Mark Marcel, who's been on the show before, guy who rediscovered Ape Canyon.
Yeah,
Mr. Ape Canyon. So he said he was going to watch the show tonight. So if you're watching, Mark, it's awesome to have you on and to consider you a friend. You are the man. Seriously. Stag Shift Zaya says, how do you think the heat wave and fire is going to affect Bigfoots? I'm assuming. That's a good question. What do you guys have any thoughts about that?
I mean, I think that if they're living a hunter-gatherer lifestyle and are always kind of semi-migrational anyway, depending on where the food occurs, I feel like that they probably have some other places, some different pockets, and it's just a matter of moving from one to another. It'd be interesting, like if it ever got to this state of where, like Australia's wildfires, like where entire habitats are being destroyed, like miles and miles. Then it'd be interesting to see how that would impact like a population of animals. But I feel like Bigfoot can more or less like move and bend into different areas. But a massive fire like that would probably displace them and maybe cause some inconsistency with sightings and reports.
Yeah, definitely. That's an interesting point. I mean, that's something I think we thought about a lot in this trip. That's in the Mount Hood area as well, because there were fires recently there. There was a couple roads out in the Mount Hood area Oh God, that picture of Tate. So Tate's driving, so I guess he's just gonna have his.
No, wait,
his face
I'm in the parking lot. I just wanted to show it. It's like looks like the Shining moment when you got Jack Nicholson just staring, doing that one look. It's my version of that.
It's never boring with Tate, that's for sure.
Is that going to happen every time you go like away?
Yeah.
We're just going to see that.
Definitely throws me off. But Mark has messaged me. He says, "Watching good show so far." ... Well, I don't know. Hopefully, we don't derail it at any point here. So
Yeah.
let's try
I might,
to keep it a good show.
I might derail.
I know that's what that's what I was thinking.
The classic Tate detour.
Oh man.
Well, if Mark's watching, Mark, you got to give me a call one of these days because I got to tell you about my dinner with Brad.
Oh my gosh, I heard about this. Pretty
It was
legendary.
beyond exciting, but
So, but anyway, yeah, back to the forest fire thing. We thought about it a lot. I mean, Tate, we even talked about it in Northern California, the possibility of fires up in the Happy Camp area, maybe pushing wildlife and things down towards Bluff Creek. We certainly talked about it in the Mount Hood area with that whole, there was a road that was taken out. I mean, to get to a couple spots that we had to go into to meet some friends, we had to take these whole detours through these really bad logging roads basically, because it was just the fires had shut down the road, and I guess it takes them a long time to clean it up. I don't really have too much experience with forest fires just because we don't really have that up here in the Northeast as much, even though we have a lot of forest. The fires are a lot smaller and more contained. It's a little wetter up here, I'd say.
Well, like as you know, who would be great to talk to sometime on the show is Kip Morrill, because
oh yeah, of course,
that's what he does, and so every time there's a fire around Bluff Creek, he's always updating us on things like that, and we're always it kind of worries me every year. Like there's a forest fire in Bluff Creek. I'm like, dude, is it going to be the year that the film site catches on fire?
Oh gosh,
I mean,
you don't even want to think about it.
I don't want to. I mean, and this is something that's kind of weird to think about. In a weird way, it would be very bad, obviously, but at the same time, it would almost look like what the film site looked like back then. You could move all those dead trees.
Yeah.
Weirdly.
I think we have to consider like the greater impact on fire and fire ecology too. So what might seem like a bad thing, because as Frankenstein or the monster in Frankenstein once said, "Fire bad." I think it's important that we see that like the after effects are also very good. So you have a lot of new growth, which means there could be like, if there was an area predominantly forest or trees, because of the complex root systems kind of crowding out the forest floor, a lot of the deaths of those trees or different types of vegetation could be new growth, and some of that new growth could be different ferns or berries that animals feed upon. So not only do you have different types of wildlife going in there and grazing, and Bigfoot could be a part of that, but then also you have potential food sources and whatever wildlife that are there. So there's a lot of new potential food sources, both flora and fauna, for an animal like Bigfoot, and that could dictate why people start seeing them. So it could, an area that's been affected by fires recently could either be a desert, a deserted wasteland without any abundance of food sources, or in a couple of years of regrowth, it could be a hotbed for food and different opportunities for Bigfoot. So I think it could be a lure or it could be a deterrent, depending on the recent activity or how recent that fire was in the area.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that recent factor is probably an important one. If there was a fire that happened just recently, maybe in the immediate, it might send lots of critters out of that area. So the food sources go, the predators follow, right? But years down the road, that area, as you mentioned, I mean, could come back, especially if it's cleaned up or managed properly. You could have some new growth forest. But yeah, it's definitely something interesting. I'd love to talk to Kip about it. For those who don't know, Kip Morrill, he's with the Bluff Creek Project. He is basically a wildland firefighter. Really awesome guy. He's going to be in Bigfoot in Bluff Creek in the documentary. Has some awesome insight just about that area. He's got a lot of professional experience being in the Pacific Northwest and fighting fires, especially since there's so many as of late. It'll be really interesting. I'm definitely going to have him on at some point. But this question from our good old friend Carrick. He asks, "Did you get the chance to hear any weird stories from alleged witnesses in the area?" So we didn't really interview as many witnesses in Oregon. You know, it was more researchers. We got a really good chance. Well, we did see a lot of reports from Oregon in the North American Bigfoot Center. So folks that don't know, that's the museum, as I mentioned earlier, that Cliff Barrickman runs. Our buddy Connor Anderson works at it. Fantastic folks there. I mean, the museum is top notch. If you're ever in that area, you got to go. And you're into this subject, it's a no-brainer. It's especially if you're on the way to Mount Hood from Portland. It's directly on your way there, so there's no excuse not to go. But we saw a lot of, they told us about a lot of reports, a lot of things that has happened. They have people coming in there all the time telling them I had this and this happen, and they're not super big on the eyewitness aspect of it, as in that for them is not really a great piece of evidence. But, and I really appreciate this point, and that's definitely something philosophy that I'm starting to adopt, is you take an eyewitness story, and if it's recent enough, maybe you can go to that area and actually find some following or corroborating evidence. Let's say you find a footprint or some kind of a possible tree break or something in an area where this sighting happened. You have a secondary piece of evidence that can accompany an anecdotal story, which I think is great. And they've done that to a great degree of success, I'd say, in some of those areas, finding tracks. Even a couple months ago, as Connor was telling us, in some of the areas we visited, they had pulled out tracks, and they've consistently pulled stuff out of these areas. And again, they have that backdrop of researchers who have been there for so long looking into these spots. So it's really interesting. I don't know. I feel it's unique to find an area like that where pretty much since the beginning of the modern Bigfoot phenomenon, since there's been a public awareness, people have been researching the subject. As I mentioned before you came on, Ron, place like the Clackamas area around Mount Hood, people have been researching there since 70s and 80s, whereas down south in kind of your neck of the woods, Falcon, those areas, sure, there's been reports and stuff. In the Northeast as well, people haven't really been researching as long, maybe since the 90s and then to the present. So it's a little bit shorter of a period. So
well, I think the difference is too, like, I mean, maybe it's just that Western culture, that's somewhat close to Hollywood. You got filmmakers like, you guys, and like there's always been a culture for that. And it seems like Bigfoot's always been the story on the West Coast. Right. And then I think in some areas you do get in that rural South, and people just keep to themselves. And they also, it was a time where people were realizing that you tell monster hunters you have a monster, like now you're going to have people in your backyard, and people just want to live the way that they live, and they don't necessarily want like, big film crews or local news or monster hunters with guns coming out there trying to test their luck, So I think there's just a difference in culture, and since such a portion of the West Coast is federal land, is everybody's property.
Yep.
There's not an intrusion that you get with a lot of those southeastern, or southern areas where a lot of those sightings come from residential spots like Boggy Creek and around those areas.
Yeah, no, and you're so right. I feel it's the same in the Northeast. People are they're a lot more secluded. There are large national forests up here too, but it's nothing compared to out west, where basically almost everything is owned by either the federal or the state government. Right out here, I mean, even we talk about Maine. When we were up there, Eli, that chunk of northern Maine is the largest wilderness area basically in the Northeast, is owned by logging companies. It's not government, and the land out here has been owned, and that's true of both in the North and the South. It's been privately owned for a lot longer, where 100 years before that, or 100 years into it, basically people settling this area 200, 300 years in, there were still pockets of the West that were just nobody had lived out there aside from the First Nations and the Native Americans. There wasn't really anybody out there. So it's definitely a little bit different. But I really appreciate that about Oregon and the whole culture. And, people there seem to be willing to talk about Bigfoot. And we saw so many people while we were at the museum. And we went by 3 days in a row, probably, or 3 or 4 times while we were there. And consistently on the days they were open, there was just people coming in and out. There's a big interest. people are definitely into it, which is awesome. You can see it's part of the culture there, which I think is great, and I hope it catches on in other places. And slowly and surely it might, but I suppose we'll see. But yeah. So going back to Carrick's question about stories from the area, Ron, have you sent me that file?
Not yet. I've got it
Okay.
downloaded. I just haven't seen the.
Oh, I sent you in the chat my
Gotcha.
email. So we're gonna start talking about some of the weirder stuff that happened. So basically, our focus mostly was the Mount Hood area while we were there. So we went to some areas that were recommended by Connor Anderson and others in the museum. We had some kind of interesting things happen, some weird stuff happen, including running into things that we didn't perhaps expect, like Satanists, for example.
Yeah.
I mean,
we got that on video too.
Yeah, we didn't talk about this really at all last week, but yeah, we had something weird happen. I think it was the first night we were kind of staying in area recommended by Connor and Keith of the North American Bigfoot Center. So we went down to this area where there's been a long history of reports. Beautiful spots, right? You're in these gorgeous woodlands, and we start setting up for camp. We set up our camp, and we think that there's some people down in the woods. And I don't know. Does anyone else want to pick up the story?
Well, I know we were setting up camp, and I thought we were hearing people. I mean, we definitely saw them. And then I think Ron and I were drinking some kind of vodka concoction. Sam was down at the tents.
I don't remember this part.
I don't either.
We did it discreetly.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's not discreet anymore. But you guys are up at the truck with Keith and Connor, and then Ron went up there, and it was just me, Eli, and Sam by the trucks.
Yeah, you guys were down by the tent, so we'd set up in this area, and there was another car parked near where our vehicles were. And so Ron and I were the only ones that actually saw this person, really weird looking person. So
Person, vampire, one of the two. We're not sure.
We got them on video, so they have to be an actual human, I hope. But yeah, we're all standing around the truck, basically. Myself, Connor Anderson, Keith, and Ron. And as Tate mentioned, Tate, Sam, and Eli were down by the tents, and they came up afterwards. But we're just standing there kind of talking, whatever. Their truck was parked a little bit further up from where we were camping. And I just see out of the woods this person comes walking out dressed in tight black shorts with
it looked like a leotard or something.
Some kind of vest that had golden laces or something on it. Very weird looking, like huge head, very lanky body. This guy, I don't know if it was a guy. I mean, just walked out on the road and just kind of seemed almost, I was the first to see them, just kind of caught off guard. They sort of looked and they kind of did this weird strut walking past us.
I remember, like, he wasn't swinging his arms or anything, was he? Like, he was just like walking, kind of.
He was almost doing a strut of some kind.
Maybe, yeah.
It was not like a.
It was a weird gait.
It was something weird, and we all are looking at each other, just like, what on earth? I mean, we're in the middle of nowhere. This person just walks down towards the cars and keeps going across the bridge and just sort of disappears into the woods. And Connor and Keith are saying, "There's nothing down that road. It's just pure wilderness." So yeah. we're kind of thinking to ourselves, what the heck? And then Sam, Eli, and Tate come up, and they didn't see this.
We had no idea what was going on. I thought you guys were joking.
Yeah, no, we were in disbelief, but we got it on video because Keith actually had a dash cam on both the rear and front.
Well, like, that's the thing, because like they're like, you guys were like, "Do we get it on video?" We're like, "Do we?" I wish we had something. I was like, "Dude, you're recording dash cam. You totally got it on video."
Yeah, it was strange, but it got weirder when it started getting dark. So we we thought the people that were there when we first showed up were just down by the creek fishing, that they were going to leave. They didn't look like they had any equipment or anything in their truck.
What did you see in their car? That was interesting.
I'll mention that in a moment, but we're just getting ready, setting up, and Keith and Connor weren't going to be staying with us, so they were just getting ready to take off. I don't know whose mic is making hissing noise, but I see like a glittering or some kind of a shimmering light down at this area where these people were, And then I get my camera and I start zooming in, and I saw two torches on, some kind of torches, like tiki torch kind of things, and maybe a third one in the distance that was possibly a fire. And we're thinking, oh, what the heck? What is going on here? And then I look into the truck with Sam, and we see hanging from the rear view some kind of a jawbone of an animal painted gold, and there was a pentagram hanging there. So I was thinking, okay, this is a little weird. Whatever this situation is, not cool. Not to mention it was also fire season, so you're not allowed to have a fire down in that area legally. So these people were illegally putting up torches and maybe doing some kind of weird ceremony. I mean, I don't really know. It was strange, but
if we stayed there, we might have had Bigfoot action.
But we also may have had to have dealt, because that person came around looking at the cars. They knew where our camp was. We found the trail where they had walked up through. Basically, it was a sneaky kind of side trail. They were probably just going to walk up past us and scope us out and see if we were a threat or not. That's my assessment of what it was. But Connor and Keith said, man, this is the weirdest thing we've seen out here. And, they're out there looking for Bigfoot in that area almost daily. And that was a weird thing. They had seen other cars. They went back the next day and saw their cars there. And it seems like there was some kind of weird thing going on there. I'm not into that. So, do what you're going to do, but don't do fires in an area that has a huge fire risk, especially. That was just kind of that was the most annoying part of it. But we packed up and got out of there, went to another spot where we stayed a few days because we just didn't want to deal with that. It was too weird.
They're worshiping the devil out there, man.
Yeah. So, I don't know. It was weird. But as Jonathan says, some guy in a leotard doing sexy satanic strut. Where did Connor send you?
To your mom's house.
Oh God. The maturity level.
El Diablo.
Just dropped 50 points.
Hey man, that's what you get. You put together a group of very dangerous gentlemen.
Okay. Yeah, I think the Satanists should have been scared of us. There's a bunch of Bigfooters. We all had those wooden knockers. You don't want to mess around with a bunch of people with that. But so yeah.
Yeah, we
Phil
had vodka.
C says encounters with Satanists are not that uncommon, actually. Yeah, I know. I've heard the stories. Out here in the Bridgewater Triangle, Freetown State Forest, I've heard stories from tons of people running into people in robes out there. And most of the people are probably LARPing or not really sacrificing human beings. A lot of them sacrifice animals. But still, it's creepy. We were there to Bigfoot and have fun. We wanted to be alone in an area where there's Bigfoot reports. We didn't really want to deal with other people, let alone the strangeness that was going on there. So that was definitely a weird incident that happened. So
yeah, we like being the weirdest people in camp.
That's for sure.
That's why we left abruptly. It's because we came in second.
A hard second, for sure.
So yeah, but it was interesting either way. But moving on, so let's talk about some of the other kind of stuff that happened. So in the hood area, Ron, do you want to? I'm going to start getting that sound file ready, but do you want to talk a little bit about what we're about to play here?
Okay. So I got a couple of audio clips I was recording. So I'm not the most tech savvy person, and so my Zoom recorder was kind of not working for me the whole duration of this trip. But I got to this camp, and we'll call it Melody Camp. It's near a certain body of water in the region of Mount Hood. And I was there in 2018, and I don't honestly know how it was that I ended up there, but I just sat down, I set up a camp, and I remember I deployed a couple of trail cameras in root balls and well-concealed areas. I set up a baiting station on this 50-gallon metal drum that was kind of left out there in the woods, and just did a whole research thing. I set up camp, and then from there, I did some stuff in the area that night and then ventured out kind of further out to some other locations by vehicle and kind of left camp. Do you guys know Robert Morgan and how he kind of does some different things? He likes to set up camp a certain way to make Bigfoot feel like it's accepted in the space and will maybe like hang around one. So I had like my tent set up on that trip. I mean, I went like I made a research camp, and I put like books on anthropology and like, you know, ancient human hominids and primates interacting with other primates, like wide open inside the tent with the rain fly off, so that if something walked up, it would see like, oh, this is a space to, you know, where I'm welcome or whatever. And that was all. I left all of that way when I was out. But that was in 2018, and on that trip, I had a tree come down from up top, like almost immediately after arriving at camp. I think I had just enough time to hide 2 of the 3 trail cameras when something like the tree just fell down on no wind or anything like that. And then I started to hear what might have been knocks, might have been some other animals, but it wasn't an area that struck me as extremely active, but for whatever reason, it was saved on my maps. And so when I tried to meet up with Tate, we had some issues kind of connecting. Like I drove out to one location and then he was at a different location and we were like 2 hours apart. And so instead of grouping up with everybody then and there, I was like, you know what? I've been driving all day. I kind of want to just settle down somewhere. And when I looked up at the map, it was that location. Melody Camp was kind of saved there with a star. And so I was like, you know, I'll go there. You know, there might be an area with more sightings. I might have should have looked on the internet or something, but I didn't have a lot of service, and it was just kind of like it's got enough connection to get me there. The route's stable, you know. So I went back out to Melody Camp, and had some interesting stuff happen this time around. It started off with some knocking like sounds. And I guess like I should go into the scenery a little bit, like the location. You guys got part of the way there when we were the last night we were hanging out doing some stuff. But it's around a relatively popular area with a body of water. There's some campsites and stuff, and a lot of trails for horseback riding and hiking. But there's kind of a corner that's less developed, and there's like a little road, a gravel road that turns to a dirt road that kind of offshoots, and there's this kind of relatively undeveloped like hunting camp that's just free dispersed camping. And there's a couple of sites that go further back along this like gravel road. But I pulled up to one of those spots and I was getting some food, but I was also trying to get my recorder out in case anything happened. And at that point, I realized that the Zoom recorder wasn't going to work for me. You know, I said I had a lot of technical issues. So I had the idea of using my Chromebook and my Yeti mic, you know, which I had brought for recording like podcast or something of that like. And so that's the first time I broke it out the whole trip because I didn't really do anything like that when we were in California. And I'm still reviewing some of the audio. And the problem is the Yeti mic wasn't the best way to record things, and I didn't have the gain ideal. So some of my quality is not great, but did get some strange sounds on a couple of different recordings. And the file I sent you has probably got the most of what I witnessed. And then there's like a few little like short vocalizations. There was another part that maybe I might have caught a couple of knocks, but they didn't really register very well. But
okay, yeah. So I was just getting it ready. I was just getting that audio file ready. Let me just review it because it was a little hard to hear it, but I turned it up. I turned it up as much as I could. But I did just want to take a moment to pop Sam in. He's been waiting to come on in. So Sam, what's going on? aka DJ Newton.
What's up, guys?
What's up, man? He's about to start rapping for us in here. Just don't get Tate started on the raps, please.
Oh yeah, no, he is on another level. I'll be his producer though.
But so before we play that audio, I just want to say, so Sam, not really into Bigfoot before this. I mean, this was kind of your first time heading out there. So It'll be interesting to hear Sam's perspective about being out there with a bunch of us Bigfoot lunatics. So we'll talk about that in a moment here. But what I'm going to do is pull up this audio clip. So I have it basically just I turned it up a little bit, Ron. So hopefully that should work. Let me see.
It might pixelate it. I think I amplified it and it started to sound almost digital at that point.
Okay,
But-
so I bumped it up a bunch of times. I just did it really quick. But let me pop that in here and let's see if it'll work and if you guys can hear anything.
I don't think Sam, you're the only one that hasn't
So here
heard
it
it.
is.
Right?
So you can definitely hear something going on. Pretty loud there at the end. So I cut it down a little bit. I found the area where there was that audio, but
Yeah.
I'll play again this short little sequence at the beginning. I mean, you can hear something there.
Yeah, I hear it pretty well on my end.
Yeah, I can too. So that's I mean, it's interesting. Whatever it is, I mean, you got something. But I think the story, and I don't know if you mentioned this, but it gets even weirder with the second part of the story involving Connor.
Right.
So what
Yeah,
exactly? You okay there, Eli?
Yeah, I have to dip out. Sorry, guys.
Okay. All right, man. No worries. Eli's busy, but take it easy, bro.
Peace.
So yeah. What happened? What you told Connor Anderson basically what happened, and what was the story after that?
Well, I mean, and I actually showed Keith first because I was when you guys were there talking to Cliff. Like I basically had enough time to be like, like I waved to Cliff, and then I was so kind of focused on trying to get this file to play because I had a lot of technical issues when we got there, and my computer was like not wanting to play the file. And I think what happened was it got on the internet and it didn't recognize that that I was trying to get on it from Oregon or whatever. So my Google account had some conflict or whatever. But when I finally got it to play, Keith was there right next to me, and I gave him the headphones. I was like, "Can you hear this?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's weird." And he's like, "You need to show that to Connor." And I'm like, "Okay, all right." And so, I don't know. I think he got to listen to it second, and then some of you guys got to listen to it after. But the thing with Connor was, as soon as he started to hear the vocalizations, his eyes got like big, and he just kind of looked at me like, when and where was this? And so I told him like the actual location, because Melody Camp is our code name for it. And, and it was within 2 miles of where he heard something, as the crow flies, within 2 miles of what he heard in 2018, which, now we're starting to build a case for this area between the tree and the potential knocks. And that night I heard some very clear knocks. I just didn't get them on audio. The timing was off. And he had these vocalizations, and he played back his recording, which it's not so much in the foreground, and it sounds a lot cleaner, like after you amplified that.
Right.
And it still had that same thing. The reason we decided to call it Melody Camp is it has like almost like a melody. Like it's almost like it's not just your standard Bigfoot howl. Yeah. It's like kind of halfway like a Bigfoot howl, half like something singing, someone or something singing. So, and he was like, it was so weird. I didn't know what to make of it, but now you're having the same experience less than 2 miles away, 3 years later.
Mind-blowing, right? So that I haven't had a chance to hear Connor's audio yet, but I know, so Eli's going to be editing the Oregon episode, and I know he's talked to Connor and you about that, so there's going to be some sort of comparison or something he does. I just want to pull that one more time and just play that one part. mean, it's really cool. Patrick in the comments says, sounded like the Ohio howl to me. Possibly. I mean, it sounds a little more melodic. Like that's again, that's why we're calling it Melody Lake. But
So is that what timestamp is that around like that? Is that like just after like 3:05 or something like that?
I just cut the whole thing down, so I don't. That's towards the end of the recording, though. I just because I was while we were talking, I was just browsing through to see where the audio started, and I found that one spot. So, but yeah, that's the fact that you have those both going on in the same area. And I believe it was around the same time of year, right? In July or August when he recorded his.
Yeah, and then all of the stuff, the more minor things that I experienced that same year that he heard his was in like that was probably like early October or something. So like something from the summer through fall, like there's some activity going out there, and you know you had your Oregon Bigfoot highway book.
Oh yeah.
And we found that location in there with a couple of sightings attached to it. So there's something going on there.
There definitely is. Now, so super interesting to hear that, but I do want to ask Sam a little bit here about. So Sam's a filmmaker. He's from California, like Eli. Sam, this was your first time going out Bigfooting. Do you think we're as crazy, or do you think we're more crazy afterwards?
I think you guys are way more crazy. No, it's it's been educational to say the least. I mean, apart from like learning, you know, a couple of wilderness fun facts and whatnot, really kind of approaching it to, like you told me one time, Alex, that it's more of a, you know, it's a creature in between the evolutionary scale. It's closer to us. And then the way that they, you know, they communicate and all these theories that I had never heard of until that point. And that, you know, I mean, the woods are thick. I mean, they're dense. You know, that's probably not the best comparison to compare it to like an ocean or something, right? But I mean, there's a lot of stuff out in those woods that I mean, it's difficult to say for certain, and a lot of strange noises too. I mean, at one point, I think at like 6:30 in the morning, I heard a knock. Maybe on like the fourth night, I think.
Yeah, that was the night where I was woken up around 5:30 in the morning by what I thought were vocalizations behind our camp. This was actually this spot we camped was the closest to this Melody location, Ron, right? Compared to the other spots we were in, that was the closest. And we'd heard some kind of grunting noise the night before. I believe you and I had heard that, Ron, at one point, right? Some kind of just like I don't know.
Oh yeah,
I was hearing that too.
Yeah, I heard that one too.
So I think we all heard that, but and then it was 5:30 in the morning. I was woken up by what I thought were vocals, and I thought to myself, I'm just going to go back to sleep. I'm too tired right now. We'll just review it on the audio, right? And then both Sam and Eli said that around 5:30 they were woken up by what they thought were knocks. So what can you describe what exactly you kind of heard that morning? Sam?
Yeah, it was. I mean, off in the distance, but definitely closer than further. It just sounded like two strong knocks against a tree or something, and it was like, and then just the echo, and I was like, well. That's when I had checked the time, and it was it was 6:30 or 6. I think Eli heard it at 6. I heard it at 6:30.
Did you? And then did you know that he was awake? Did he heard anything until we talked about it after, or no?
No, yeah, I thought he was knocked out, and it wasn't until after we were like, oh yeah, he heard it at 6. I heard it after at 6:30.
So something was going on. I mean, I heard it half an hour before they did. I was in a different tent. Sam and Eli were in the same tent, so they heard something at separate times as well. So something was going on. I mean, if it's not a Bigfoot, there was some other animal or something in that area, which I think was interesting. But the unfortunate fact is I'm going then to review the audio, and looks like we didn't get any audio that night. The audio recorder shut itself off after 2 minutes. The only thing you can hear is us pouring water, basically, and then it cuts. So tech difficulties plague the field as always. That was really unfortunate because I think we would have gotten some pretty interesting stuff. What I heard, sounded kind of just like a classic whooping kind of noise. That's what really woke me up. So it's unfortunate we just have a story now with nothing to show for it. But
But I mean that also, as a somebody who knows nothing about Bigfoot, that it was definitely a factor that I also never had really considered. Is that, I mean, technology does have errors. It's not perfect, and so, like, there is probably stories out there, like you said, that unfortunately are reduced to nothing but experiences that are personal because equipment failure. And so it definitely adds to the mystery and the
oh yeah,
the overall, well, I wouldn't say legend, but lure of chasing Bigfoot.
totally. Yeah, I mean, how many times people have had tech issues in the field? Moral of the story, I guess, is run more than one audio recorder at all times. I think I dropped my audio recorder and I was having SD card issues, so we opted to go for Eli's Zoom. So actually, this was the very Zoom that I dropped. It's working now. I'm actually using it to record narration for the California film. But yeah, that was an unfortunate incident. But Sam, something I asked the other guys, I did want to ask you was, you'd never been to Oregon before that trip, right?
No, yeah, first time for everything. First time camping.
So that was your first time really out in the woods like that. What was your
Yeah.
impressions of Oregon after the trip? I mean, what did you kind of take away from it?
Oregon's beautiful. I really enjoy the green. I'm from SoCal, so it's a little brown here. It's a little dried out.
Yep.
But no, I mean the weather too is wonderful. Definitely, what I took most was just friendly people. I mean, we met some great people in Boring, Oregon, and just all around nice vibes. And it's difficult to summarize it, but the stars definitely was probably the most memorable thing. I live in LA, so light pollution's a thing here, but looking up at the skies and just seeing the Milky Way, that was, I mean, it's beautiful. It just reminds you how beautiful this planet is.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, it was interesting. It's funny. We're all sitting at near the museum there, and it's like a bunch of us at the table with Cliff Barrickman and Connor and Shane Corson, and I'm thinking, so many people would like kill to be in your shoes right now, Sam, and we're just basically just having a good time. I mean, everyone, it wasn't a big deal, like
Yeah.
Bigfoot famous or whatever that is. Cliff and all these guys are just down to earth. They'd be doing it regardless. I mean, just like we're out there having fun. If we weren't doing the films about it, we'd probably still be out there just enjoying ourselves and searching for mystery. I mean, that's what we're all really kind of in this for. So yeah, it was super interesting to have you there, have your perspective. We had one of my buddies actually who's in the Air Force came down from Washington for a night with us down there, and we didn't really have anything go on, but it was definitely fun to get another person who's not really into it and take them out. And we just sat in the middle of that road. I mean, you're sitting in the middle of a road. You can't really do that in a lot of places where you're just laying in the middle of the road, just listening. No cars, no threat of anything coming back or coming our way. So really cool to be there. But I did want to read this comment from Long Island fan who says, sounded like Clipper Hills screams in California, or Clipper Mills. So I'm assuming that's in reference to the audio we played. Ron, have you heard that recording?
No, I haven't really listened to a lot of Bigfoot recordings, like vocalizations, probably since like the early 2000s, and I don't know when those are from, but like I remember like finding the audio clips from the OregonBigfoot.com.
Yeah.
And they had like the polyap screams and different stuff like that, like the old ones. I haven't really heard any like modern recordings. I don't know. I just have kind of fell out of that, like searching for a lot of that stuff. But I definitely now I want to check it out, like, and see what I can find about those, because that might be something to compare it to.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I mean, you have Connor's recording to compare to. Maybe there's another one that's similar, but either way, it was super cool that, I mean, we had possibly some stuff happen at some of the camps we were at, but that was something that was pretty interesting, especially because you got the recordings. Now, I just want to read this comment from Bigfoot Anon, who says, y'all need to hit the Florida Panhandle soon. So many major encounters and stories here. Yeah, I mean, we're definitely hoping to get to Florida. I've been down to Mayaca and Ocala, but I've never been to the Panhandle. I know there's a lot of stuff going on that way too. Have you ever been out that way, Ron?
I spent some time in, I don't know, like the Panhandle. Does that mean like the Everglades?
That's like
And
the Tallahassee area. That's like the part of Florida that's not really on the peninsula.
right.
It's like the
No,
part
I
that's near
can't say.
Alabama.
I've been
Yeah,
in about the same area as you. I hit up
yeah,
Myakka and Ocala, and then
yeah,
I did some areas in the Everglades and Big Cypress National Preserve.
right.
That's about it.
Yeah, that's like I think if I'm not mistaken, the Panhandle area is a little more like wooded. It's more forest and swamp, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's where Stacy Brown got his the thermal video. You know, there's a cool little display about that thermal video in Cliffs Bigfoot Museum. So that was neat. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely an interesting trip. I did want to just talk about Sam when we did that little backpacking into that area around the Mount Hood area. We walked in a few miles with our packs and kind of backpacked in. Hopefully, it wasn't too strenuous. I know we're all like out of hiking shape, but that was interesting. But Eli had something going on then when you remember when he had that whatever knock or something that he thought he heard.
Yeah, we were halfway probably, and he asked us, "Hey, did you guys hear that?" And he mentioned a knock, but I didn't hear anything. I think it might have been because the trees. I mean, trees were definitely creaking when we were hiking too.
Yeah, that's true. But I remember when we were set up at camp. So we set up at this pond basically. And it was a short distance down to the water. So I think he was getting some water. Sam and I were up at the camp. We were going to cowboy camp that night, so no tent, just right on the ground. You know, so for somebody who hasn't really been camping, that was like going 0 to 100 real quick. But Eli's down by the water, and he starts like saying random stupid things. You know, hello from New York City, or all kinds of weird stuff. He just starts shouting and singing. After he ended,
Oh yeah.
he said that he heard what sounded like a knock, and it echoed around the pond. We didn't hear it, but he thought it was pretty peculiar. We didn't have any audio or anything running, but again, we were just a little ways up, and we didn't hear that sound at all. So I don't know
But later,
what's going on with that.
later too. Remember that weird growl or hum?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because we were recording a quick little episode of Cryptid Campfire, and this thing
That's
just
right.
out of nowhere comes.
Yeah, we started hearing some vocalizations in the distance. I don't know what it was. I have the recording, or I think Eli does. We're still looking at that, and he's doing more of the Oregon episode, so I haven't really even seen much of the footage from that. But that was an area where there's a history of reports, history of sightings. Some researcher friends of ours have had stuff happen in those areas. They're basically these kind of high mountain ponds that you can backpack into, and there's so many of them around the Mount Hood area. That's what's so interesting about it. So there's not a lot of vehicles or huge amounts of people that can get up there. You have to basically walk into some of these spots. So that's prime Bigfoot habitat. You're going to be intersecting with lots of other wildlife. So definitely really interesting to be staying in an area like that. But overall, yeah, it was man, what a place. Just the amount of like areas we were in. I mean, some closer to civilization, others totally far out there. And just that we had some of the stuff happen. And one of the nights when we were near the Melody camp area, we walked out to that pond. You remember that, Sam? That was a pretty brutal bushwhack.
Yeah.
So we were we were looking for tracks, and in an area with perfect substrate. I mean, there was mud. If there were tracks of anything, we would have found it there. And we found lots of elk, deer, as well as some cranes. We actually had 2 fly out right near me. It freaked us the heck out. But yeah, that area was. I mean, we were going through grass. It reminded me of the Lost World, where they're getting attacked by the velociraptors, and you had grass almost up to your stomach, basically, in some of those areas. So, man, I wish we'd had more time. Honestly, it's like you kind of get done with it. Go ahead.
Did you want to talk about the drones or no?
Oh yeah, I mean, if you want to bring it up, Tate had this awesome idea, something we tried out for the first time. I don't know if anyone's done it. Maybe somebody has, but
we should just talk about that whole process, because that day we really got some good try hard effort into our research.
Yeah, was the second night we
in,
were
in
at
a pretty
camp.
good area too, with a historical report. So
Oh yeah, lots of historical reports. An area that Connor and Keith had sent us to. Second night staying there, and we tried out some interesting techniques. I mean, Tate, you're the one who came up with the idea. You want to
Well, okay. Is my
say what
sound
you
okay?
thought of?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you sound good.
All right, because I'm driving right now and it's raining, so I don't want to.
No, you're all good.
So we've been using like the pheromone chips in Bluff Creek and Portland area, and so it just, I don't know why it came to me, but it just dawned on me like, hey, instead of dragging them around camp, why don't you attach them to the drone and just try and fly it low to the trees? Because if anybody has ever flown like one of those, even like one of those Mavic drones, even the minis, if you're underneath those fans, there's so much air just getting blown down at it. I thought maybe that the wind from the rotors would like blow and waft that air, that smell from the chips everywhere.
Yeah.
And so I mean, it was worth trying. So you volunteered your drone to do the maiden voyage.
Yes, I did. Yeah. So it looks like we lost Tate there, but at least he finished his thoughts, right? No. So we tied basically with some P cord. We tied a pheromone chip, or we did two, right? Was it two chips?
I think it was, yeah. No, it was just one.
I got a photo. I'm gonna try to send it to you, Alex.
It was just like a really smell going on.
My phone did what Eli just did last week.
He's always doing that. But we tied it to the bottom of the drone, and I flew it around pretty low. And you really can get a lot of, as Tate was mentioning, those fans on those drones, or the rotors, it pushes a lot of air down. So the idea was, hopefully this might send the smell down. I flew almost so low to the trees that I crashed into a tree at one point, and my rotor was damaged. I think the pheromone chip on the string actually flew up at the rotor, managed to break the rotor a little bit, and it still flew with the broken rotor. I got to get a new rotor actually now, but
so that's kind of like why I texted you that idea, like, because obviously that was a beta testing, and if it works, I mean, I'm sure this will be tried out in more places probably. There's different ways to do it. It's better where it won't. I thought like having some wire, because wire is more sturdy and won't swing around, so you have less of a chance of that swinging up into the rotor. And plus, they can stay down and direct that, directly under that fan instead of moving around when you're flying.
Right. Yeah, no, it was definitely an interesting technique to try. As Patrick asks, I see, that sounds like fun. Do you guys have any luck? I haven't reviewed the audio from that. We didn't have anything tangible happen in camp. We did a lot of knocks and kind of did some night walking as well in the area. We also walked completely around the area around our camp. Ron and I, and then Sam and Eli, you guys went on the other side, dragging the pheromone chip as was recommended to get that smell kind of onto the trees. And we talked about it last week. Those pheromone chips smell so bad.
I wanted to mention like how we like found like this whole like extensive creek with waterfalls and everything, and I was kind of shocked that all of that was kind of tucked away in the thicket. And then we started to find all these animal trails and pathways that winded through like that area, and like all the good water sources, because I thought we just had like this little nearly bone dry creek from up on the road where the camp was, but then like there's quite an extensive source of water once you get down below the tree line and stuff. So I thought that was kind of a cool survey of our area, and kind of shocked that all of that was there.
Oh yeah, it was. Ron and I think had the rougher side, where Eli and Sam went. It was a little smoother sailing. We really went down into the creek. I lost my walkie-talkie somewhere in there, so if there's a Bigfoot out there with a walkie, just letting people know he wants berries. That's my fault.
Was it channel 9? I think.
I think it was either 9 or 6. I'm not sure, but either way, it's just out there somewhere. I mean, it was so thick in there, and we're getting scratched up and cut up just trying to get in and out of that area. But yeah, it gives you an idea of what's in that spot. And I mean, you have just the small creek running through. But let me actually I'll pull up a picture that Ron has sent me Can I pull this picture up? Oh, why won't it work? I wanted to pull the drone picture up. I guess I'll have to share my screen again just to show what the what this thing looked like. Let's see. Okay, 1 second, guys. Just bear with me here. I gotta share my second screen, so I gotta put this on the screen itself. Oh, that's a great picture, though. Here we go. Okay, so that's the drone. So I think it was 2 chips actually. Yeah, I feel like I can see.
You put 2 on there for sure.
There's 2 for maximum smell, maximum gross smell. So yeah, there's the idea, guys. So we just basically had the pheromone chips, and these rotors, they really emit a lot of wind. So the idea was
my favorite thing was like you guys are about to like X-nay that idea because I opened my mouth. I was like, I got an idea, and you guys were like, and then I started saying it, and you're like, oh.
Yeah, I think we all kind of looked at each other and basically said, "Oh man, that's a really good idea."
Yeah.
Connor, his eyes lit up, and he was kind of shocked as well. It was just such a good idea because I don't know what we were doing. We were just, it was still really hot out, and we were just kind of tired.
Well, you were getting the pheromone chips out to do it, and I was like, I don't know why I thought of it. I was like, hey, let's try the drone. Maybe that'll work.
It was a totally random kind of thought, but we were like, let's go for it. Why not? So we flew it around the area. I flew it low enough so that this the string didn't wobble around too much. It was pretty stable, and I had the camera pointed right down at it so I could see how close I was getting to trees. Had obstacle avoidance on. Almost crashed a couple times, but those sensors started going off. But yeah, it was a cool technique. I'm glad we tried it. Trying something new. I mean,
I'm sure that won't be the last time it's going to be tried. I mean, you'll probably try it in other places.
Yeah, we probably will try it. And in the picture here, we got Eli, Connor Anderson, and Keith there, the North American Bigfoot Center. So that was pretty cool. Awesome to always cool to try out new techniques out in the field.
It's that Hieronymus ingenuity.
Exactly.
I get it from my Uncle Bob.
There you go.
Guy in the suit, right? I did want to read this question from Salvatore. He asked, how was Cliff and Bobo? Any Bigfoot action or learn anything new? So it was really cool actually on this whole trip between California and Oregon. First hanging out with Bobo, definitely learned some new stuff about Northern California. But talking to Cliff, Cliff's just great. But we spent a lot more time with Connor. Cliff was pretty busy. He had a lot of conferences going on. He was between, I think, Michigan and Florida back-to-back weekends. But Connor basically has the keys to the kingdom in terms of the information that they have at the museum and the information they get. I mean, those maps they have, Connor was showing us some of his maps. They were getting new reports while we were there. We basically had a tough choice to choose which location do we go to for that last night when it was the 5 of us.
Yeah, one of the places I wanted to go to, they got an email in, and then
they got an email that night or that day while we were thinking of heading up there, and then
it was crazy.
We had come back, it was the same thing.
You guys were going to another place, and I was actually headed home, and then Connor was like, "Yeah, remember that same place? Was it last night again, or the next day? That same day, like, yeah, a lady told us they got something down there in that same area."
So therein lies the issue with the Mount Hood area. There's just such good there's so many good spots pretty much anywhere you go, and then the problem is narrowing down where you think something might happen. I mean, Ron, do you think those recordings, was that sheer luck on your part and just kind of picking that area and just happening to have stuff happen, or what do you think?
I mean, I definitely feel like, I mean, talking to Connor, he definitely seems to think that something's there. At least seasonally, between those months where we observe that activity. I mean, yeah, I guess it really depends. I feel like you just have to be smart about where to kind of dig in your feet and commit, and then like when to move on, if you got a specific amount of time. And that was the thing that, like, I was like, I don't know the person that is saying that they just recently had a sighting. And so I know we all had like different opinions of where we should have gone. And I was trying to get back to Melody Camp, but then somebody else within that time frame of us deciding had set up camp for the weekend. So we didn't get to stay there a second night, but it was one of those things I was like, well, I trust my observations and what I experienced there and kind of what everything was going on there. And it seems like that was active just as recent as this other one, just about. So, whether or not that other person, that secondhand account, actually happened, it was like, I trust, I feel like my odds are good to go back there. So it was one of those things that was confusing because it was too much going on and we all wanted to check out what's going on. We always wanted to be on the fresh leads. But then at the same time, you could go somewhere that hasn't had a sightings report in a month and something would happen there. So it was like,
it was too many. There were too many spots to choose from.
Yeah,
that was funny because Ron and I went together that last time. It was the second to the last night, and you guys went to the other spot, but because we couldn't camp there because, like Ron said, there was somebody there. So you guys told us where you're at, but I couldn't get cell service enough to get like my map really. So I found the place where you guys were at, and I was like, well, I think this is the road, so I just turned there and looking up, you guys were there. So not too bad for guessing.
No, totally. I mean, we were as close as we could get to that location, Ron, I suppose, the way the crow flies. And
that was the thing, was we were sitting right up on a kind of, I don't know if we were all the way up on the hill, but we were up there overlooking the area where that had happened. So we were in the vicinity, like you said, as the crow flies. We were kind of about the same distance that Connor was from, we were within a couple of miles, I think. So definitely within hearing range of any type of vocalizations, if anything had started making noises. So I definitely think that whole area, that like a 5-mile radius there, like there's something going on, and
there's a history report. So
maybe the bad fire kind of displaced something, and sent them out in that direction. We were looking at it like, well, it could have gone through Melody Camp, it could have gone a different way and followed these creek systems. If recent fires kind of flushed it out of the area, but we were out there when you guys were out by that pond. Tate and I, we were discovering like an old logging road that was now in disuse, probably because fire had kind of like destroyed the majority of the path, but it's still an active animal trail. We found a killed rabbit or something along the old road there. There's so much between the disused roads and ample water sources. There's just a highway, and I'm not talking about a literal highway, but there's tons of highways for animals to get in and out of there. I mean, tons of sign of like big animals like elk and bear. We found when I was out around Melody Camp, I found some elk sign and stuff like that, and
that's what we found around the pond as well.
Get around out there without being noticed, for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Even if it's a popular spot.
I just want to let people know that I ate a mosquito and all that, not on purpose out there.
Yeah, Tate thought he was going to die.
It's never fun. You don't go camping unless you've eaten a mosquito, right? That's a kind of a quintessential camping experience. But I did just want to read this comment and address this. Cynthia says, I don't think using drones is legal on government land, at least in California, as is harassing wildlife. You should check it out before using it again. That's actually not true. You can fly drones in national forests. That's federal government land. Totally legal to do it in national forests. In most places, the only spots you really can't are protected wildlife refuge areas, or like some of the ones we have out here that I know specifically in some of the national forests, that, like here in New Hampshire, there's designated wilderness areas where there's basically no roads or trails or anything in those areas. It's just hiking trails. So
also, too, with that, to go along with what you're saying, that I agree with you, Alex, because Kit Morrill is actually a helicopter pilot for like firefighter, and he has a Part 107 drone license to fly, so he knows those laws pretty well. So
and he operates in the Pacific Northwest, and he works for the Bureau of Land Management that basically owns most of that land that we were in the Pacific Northwest. So if it's harassing,
up there all the time.
that's the thing. You can't do it in national parks. So in most national parks, it'll be posted. People still don't
Like
do it.
Yellowstone is a place you can't fly a drone.
Yellowstone, a lot of these other national parks, and then a lot of times it's local ordinances. So you'll have state parks. So like a lot of the state parks in California, I don't think any state park in California drones are legal. I don't know in Oregon. You'd have to obviously look, but the areas we were in, we were well clear of any area where there was any restrictions. We're in national forests, BLM land, so it's federally owned. And as of now, the rules state that you can fly drones responsibly, well within the FAA rules. So we're all registered with the FAA, and we follow and comply with those rules. So we shouldn't have any issues. If there's any animals in the area that are being harassed, I mean, then I don't know. That's a different argument. But in terms of the legality, we're well within our limits, and it's part of the research. I mean, we're not just flying for the fun of it. We're trying to conduct research, and it gives you an idea of the terrain. Like I fly over a valley, so I can see how far does it go in. How is the hike going to be in there? You know, and it's a useful piece of equipment beyond just the filmmaking side.
Well, like on Finding Bigfoot, when their brand new episode within this year, they used a drone at the very last for the very last night investigation. It was a thermal drone.
Right, so, the thermal drones. Yeah, those are awesome. I mean,
and I don't even think I gave a drone close enough to an animal to harass it.
Right. Yeah. Once you get close to the trees, at least the newer drones, the sensors start going off, and you start almost, not wanting to crash or anything. So you don't get close enough for animals. And I've flown in places like Florida. I've flown over ponds that have had gators, and you don't get close to them or anything. You just kind of fly over. You don't want to harass animals. That's not really a cool thing to do. But,
plus, you can use like the zoom feature on all these drones. So you could be up 100 feet in the air and just zoom in, and it'll like almost be like 50 feet. Because these drones are getting better and better.
Oh yeah, and you're going to get to the point where there's going to be drones that can be 300 feet in the air, and you can just zoom in and get a really high quality photo. The technology is going to be there eventually. It's not a matter of when, or it's a matter of when, not if. So it's pretty cool. But Tate, Bigfoot Society asks, as Jeremiah says, Tate, are you driving during this? Yes, he is. He's still on the road.
Yeah, I am on the road. I will be back my time, well, Alex and I's time at 12 o'clock.
On the East Coast, so almost back. But yeah, guys, it's been awesome recapping this. Anyone, if you guys have some closing thoughts, Sam, I'd love to hear just in closing kind of your thoughts about all this and the episode and the filmmaking side of it too. I mean, how was it working with us? We're probably still as crazy in that aspect too.
Oh yeah, but I think that's where I met you guys in the filmmaking aspect, the nitty gritty. No, I mean it was a very fun experience, educational, like I said earlier, and I've learned a lot more than I thought I would with Bigfoot and the overall wilderness. There's a lot of stuff out there. I mean, not just Bigfoot, obviously, but it really puts things into perspective. Camping weeks without a bed or a roof over your head, and seeing the stars, and running into Satanists, and hiking, and hearing strange sounds throughout the night. I mean, it's an adventure, and it's alluring. I understand why you guys do this. I mean, apart from just trying to find this thing, I mean, the very nature of this, the work it takes, the brain power, obviously. I mean, you guys got to coordinate. You got, sense of direction is very important. It was one for the books, definitely, in my opinion. But no, I mean, professional, definitely. And I love the camaraderie that you guys have. I mean, this community, like you mentioned earlier, Alex, Cliff and everyone is so down to earth, and it's just genuinely nice to connect with other humans and share a common goal.
Yeah, that's such a great way of putting it. Hopefully we'll have you out again with us, stomping around in some woods at some point. I know we want to do something in the Sierras at some point, so that's like right up you're in Eli's alley. That was a tongue twister, but right on. Anyone else? Any last thoughts?
About you, Tate?
No, I'm good. I think everybody said everything I wanted to say.
I guess I'll put in something here, I guess. I don't know. I feel like what we're doing out here, we're all collectively trying to put together this really elaborate piece of a puzzle, this phenomenon that we don't really understand. And Oregon was a textbook example of us actively working together and putting the pieces together. I mean, there's been so much of a collaborative effort in California. I feel like all we really could do there is go there and experience, okay, yeah, this is a spot, look at it's, the Bluff Creek project did a good job of stitching the film site back together and stuff. But Oregon was almost like this wilderness, and to go to places. We were in one of those locations where those rock stacks. Did you guys talk about that at all?
No, actually, I totally forgot about that. The reason why we're in one of these areas was because there's been those rock stacks that have been found around Mount Hood with the what are they called, the picas, right?
Yeah, and then I don't even know if the reports that I had been reading even stated that they were pica.
The
It seemed
Glenn Thomas
unclear.
site, that was the one where
Yeah,
he saw Sasquatches in these holes that were dug out in the rocks, like talus fields, basically eating mice and other little small rodents.
yeah.
That's the story. Yeah.
But going there and actually seeing that, that it was pica, instead of ground squirrel or whatever confusing narrative, conflicted. That was kind of that helped for me put together this, like, okay, well, here's the natural history. Here's pica, in this area for a long time. They're living in these big communities and are a stable food source, for anything living in that area for maybe even centuries. But to have these different locations kind of all within the vicinity of one another, and more or less finding the center point of the things that happened in and around, Melody Camp or some of those other sites that we were at, like that was just kind of, to me, that would have been an isolated account, and who
Right.
cares, but then experiencing that and then having Connor experience something extremely similar, and then you guys kind of witnessing what you witnessed, further up on the ridge from our last camp. Now I feel like I have an idea, like if there's an animal out there, like we kind of are starting to stitch together where it's going. And when we go to those locations, we're starting to see why it might be there. We found salmon berries, or we found
Right.
pica here, or we found a stable source of water that even during the dry fire season, it's still flowing pretty
Pretty
steady.
consistent. Yeah.
So just that we're kind of unintentionally becoming or following a process that you would expect wildlife biologists to be following when they're pursuing the creatures that they study. I mean, that tells me that, I feel like we're on the right track, and I don't know if we're going to be the ones to put all the pieces together and complete the portrait of whatever mystery the Sasquatch is. But if we can get one tiny corner put together, and have a better idea of what the overall picture is, then somebody else, right behind us or years from now can start stitching that together. And that's everybody's collective legacy might actually propel us forward to making that discovery.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
Oregon and California travels with you guys. That was kind of the idea that, I took away from that.
definitely. I mean, we're all just kind of trying out different techniques, seeing what works. And this was so great because not only did we have the whole camaraderie side, as Sam was saying, I mean, so funny, just the stuff that happened. Those are the memories that you remember, the stuff that happens, all the mishaps, all the unintentional hilarity that goes on behind the scenes, right? Because you're not just going out. We're not just 100% serious all the time out there. We're having fun. We're goofing off.
Well, maybe you aren't, but I am.
Yeah, Lego Star Wars.
Tate's the most serious of any researcher. We know that.
Yeah, because I think you have to have a certain level of seriousness when you're putting drones and pheromone chips together and you're playing Lego Star Wars to try and elicit a response.
We did play Lego Star Wars in the spot that we got those knocks and vocals that morning that woke us up. So maybe Slosh likes Lego Star Wars.
I always say it's like, if you're not getting anything with like the, shotgun approach, like you're going with cameras and drones and pheromone chips and thermals. Just really act as weird as you can in camp. And if you're going to play Lego Star Wars in camp, that might be weird enough for someone's like, what the heck is going on? Because, like,
Right.
you got to be honest. Like, normally if they're out there, they're seeing campers that play guitar, and just hang around a campfire. But playing
Roasting
Lego Star Wars on a film projector.
I don't think there's a lot of people who bring out a projector and then, play it off of their phone, and then, there's like you hear the noises and the lightsabers going off, and us like, go, you go to the left, screaming at the screen. That's a little different, maybe. So maybe that caused some interest. I don't know. Maybe we'll have to try it again. Tate, you're really onto some stuff here between the pheromone chip and the drone and the Lego Star Wars.
He's the equipment guy.
We're gonna just go to him he's the brains. He's
maybe the Satanists. Maybe the Satanists were just trying to be curious and unusual to lure out a Bigfoot.
Maybe they were Bigfooters. Yeah, we don't know. I mean, we have no idea now. If you guys are watching fake Satanists, let me know. I mean,
maybe they were in a band.
Yeah, right. But no, I mean, either way, I think it was the trip was a success in the sense that we had some stuff happen. It was interesting. We learned a lot. Problem is, with an area like that, you could go for a month and just hang out in one spot. When you only have 5-6 days, 6 nights, 5 days, it's tough, and you got to pick and choose. And we had so many. I think we did as much as we could in the time we were there and going to different spots. And based off of where there's been encounters and where people like Connor and locals who research those areas daily told us to go, I think that's the thing is don't go into an area that you're not from and just assume that you're going to get the answers. Talk to the locals. Talk to the local researchers. If there's a museum or an institution like the North American Bigfoot Center in that area, go talk to them. They can maybe point you in the right direction.
I do want to say something to go along with that. Like, say you're not able to do that. Let's just say, like, if you go to a place that you think they might have it, you're not able to, you can always do a good old-fashioned Google search. Just go on Google Maps, and things you want to look for is, tree coverage, which if you're in the Pacific Northwest, that's not hard to find. Look for a water source near that area that you're wanting to go to. And if there's a campground that might be there too, like that's open, go during the week, not the weekend. There's a better chance of people not being there. And then if there's deer, that's even a plus. So, I mean, wherever there's water is especially important. Because wherever there's water, you're going to find deer and other animals. So definitely find water and then good places that are easy to get to if you're going alone. But yeah, definitely talk to people. But if not, you can always do the Google search.
Totally. Awesome discussion, guys. I just want to say thank you to Peggy Curtis as well. Let's see, Ron, what is that?
So I'll extend this reward for you guys. When I got back to work after nearly 3 weeks of being absent, my management team, they made this laminated certificate for me. This goes to all of us in the PDG group.
The PDG.
PDG.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Yeah, great discussion, guys. No, seriously, it's been awesome having you guys all on again. Just great discussion between this week and last week with Jonathan and with Sam as well. Everybody else that was part of it. I mean, so many other people. This was like our core group, I guess. But there were a lot of other people that were on the side that we talked to, and as I mentioned, Connor and Cliff and so many other awesome folks. So I'm really excited for the episodes. I'm almost done with the California one. It's going to be coming out in August. Bigfoot at Bluff Creek.
I have no idea when mine's coming out.
I know Jonathan will have the episode or is doing an episode on this, as well as Eli is working on the Oregon episode of Beyond the Trail. So that'll be shown on STM on YouTube. But I don't know if I'm allowed to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to share this poster real quick. So hush here. We'll just we'll do it real quick here.
You got that one, Jonathan?
No.
That's the best one.
I'm gonna show this poster real quick. This is more related to the California thing, but here is that real quick. Let's see, share screen. So this is the poster for the upcoming Beyond the Trail Bigfoot at Bluff Creek. So, or one of the poster concepts. So I don't know if this is gonna be the final one, but that I know it's kind of Indiana Jones-esque, but you got the old Oma statue there. But it's pretty cool. So just a little sneak peek, guys. So that is basically it. But yeah, thank you guys all for coming on here. Just been awesome talking to everybody. Jeremiah says PDG is real talk. Great chat, dudes. Yeah, Jonathan's going to get inducted as well.
Be careful.
So Salvatore says Bigfooters should go camping first, and if by chance you get lucky, look for Bigfoot as a bonus. Yeah, I mean, a lot of this stuff is just having fun, being out in the woods, enjoying nature, experiencing nature, and you get a little bonus of Bigfoot right on the side. Sandra says, good night, everyone. God bless. Papa Craig, very cool. Hope you get it done. Yeah, totally will. It'll be done soon. So anyway, guys, awesome again to have everyone on. Thanks to everyone in the comments. Chat, as always, popping off. Lots of great people, lots of great discussions and questions. Super excited. Next week, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, as a reminder, I'll be having on a New Hampshire Bigfoot researcher. So we're going to talk about my state of New Hampshire. I'm really excited to talk about that again after so much P&W talk over the last few weeks. But until then, hope everyone has a great rest of your week. And we'll see you guys all next week.
Likewise.